Well, welcome back to the episode of Put It All on Red. I have a fabulous show for you tonight, a very interesting show. I have a guest. I just wanted to say before we introduce the guest, it is my anniversary. So tonight is a 1 year, well, actually 1 year because I did take off a week for a loved one's death. This is my anniversary, my 1 year anniversary. I put it all together. So I'm really excited tonight. And when I got to realize, and I was like, wow, it's been a year. Just celebrating that as well. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who logs in. If you've ever logged in, if you've been following myself and on this show or the other shows, I really appreciate you. Now I'm going to go ahead and let my guest introduce herself as well. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Parastu Imami, and I'm a parenting coach, a speaker, and a podcaster. Thank you so much for having me here, Roberta. I'm very excited to talk about this topic tonight.
All right. Well, I am excited too. I am excited too. So before we get started, let's go ahead because we've both been throughout our day, our normal day, I'll say. So now we're coming into the podcast. So as we slow ourselves down and we get to chatting, before we get into the discussion, let's do a mental health check. So where would you say you were tonight? And I'm going to go ahead and say use a word today.
Use a word.
Uh-huh.
Um,
A feeling.
I feel, I feel at peace.
Okay. All right. I like that. That's neat. All right. I feel intuitive. I feel like I'm gonna learn something and I'm gonna gain something, some type of tools tonight. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Again, it's Roberta the Tool Lady and Paris too. And so we're just gonna be discussing our topic tonight is I feel too much. And we usually, when we talk about feelings, some people don't like talking about feelings, and that's both men and women. Sometimes they're cursed, they counsel them out, and sometimes the people that they talk to may counsel out your feelings as well. So we're going to talk about I feel too much and what that means. Is really loaded. All right, Paris. The first discussion I wanted us to have was what is empathy versus sympathy?
Mhm. Yeah, so for me, being a highly sensitive person, being an empath is just one of the four components of being highly sensitive. But as a highly sensitive person, we feel our empathy level is like on steroids. We feel so much. We feel people's emotions. We feel their pain. For example, if somebody has a headache, I will feel their headache even though I didn't have a headache until I saw the person and they mentioned that they have a headache, and I can feel
Mhm,
that emotion in them and that pain in them, and I can feel it, physically feel it in my body.
mhm,
And it also is very good because when you're empathetic, um, at least as a highly sensitive person, I can also read the room really well. So I can enter in when I was in the corporate world, I could enter in a room full of people that were gathered for a meeting, and I would know what each and every person was feeling and what they were feeling about the specific topic that we were going to discuss. So I knew how to handle each and every single person just based on the fact that I could pick up on their energy and I could read them very well.
okay.
And so
Well,
that's what empathy is for me. And should I go ahead and compare it to sympathy now, or would you like
well,
to add to
um,
that?
I'll go ahead and chime in. I think it's wonderful that you're able to utilize that empathy. I can say with me, I haven't got to that degree of utilizing it as far as what to do with it. Because with me, I usually avoid a lot of crowds because of that, because I'm highly sensitive. So
Yeah,
it's too much energy for me. So I have not gained the ability to use it as a tool to help me negotiate, which would be awesome if I could get to that part, right?
yeah,
Um, so I
it's
think that's
amazing.
nice that you say that, because I also am an empath, and it took me a long time to figure out that's why you feel so much. And I used to say it, you know, with different situations, I feel, and it used to just take me all the way down. Like
Mm,
if I was in a situation where there was a lot of energy, it used to really just shut me down. As a fact, one little tidbit about me. I couldn't work at a hospital and I couldn't work in a prison because
mm,
it would make me physically sick because
mm,
so that was some things that I knew about myself and know about myself. So it's
yeah,
interesting that we're talking about it because I'm sure there's other people out there that have experienced those intense feelings but just don't know where they come from or
yeah,
why do I feel like this when I'm around people, when other people can be unaffected.
yeah.
Um, empathy is just being able to say, you know what, I understand that happened to you, and you know what, I really feel terrible that you're going through that. Um,
Mhm,
now, and so now on the other side of the coin of that question that I presented to Paris too was sympathy. So I'm
mhm.
going to go ahead and let her go into the sympathy part, and then we're going to kind of say which one is the best.
Yeah, I feel that's a great question about comparing the two. I emphasize more on empathy just because my work is related to high sensitivity, and that's one component of being highly sensitive. But I guess to think about sympathy, to me, you feel sad or sorry for the person. You're sorry that they're going through something. For example, if there's somebody who passes, you feel sad, and you
Mhm.
are very sympathetic towards the person that is dealing with that death and their family. Um, Whereas empathy is you're feeling their pain. You can feel in your heart, in your body, you can actually feel their pain.
Yes, yes. So, and you're right. With sympathy, it's a component of being sad. Also, you got to think with sympathy is a component of not only being sad, but maybe hopeless as well.
Mhm.
Because if you're encouraging an individual, which one would you want on the other side? If you were on the other side, that person needing that encouragement, would you want that person to have the empathy? Man, I can feel where you're coming from. Or would you want them to have that sympathy where they're just sad right there with you and they feel sorry for you, and
Yeah,
uh-huh.
I think that's a very good point because there's sometimes their sympathy has a place, and sometimes it doesn't. And you really need to be very emotionally aware and have a very high emotional intelligence to know the difference, first of all, and to be able to discern the difference, but also to know when it's appropriate to say I'm sorry, and how you say it, your tone of voice, your body language, your what you're
Yes.
doing with your hands, all matter, right? um, Brene Brown does a great job talking about this, and she says the worst thing that you want to say to someone is, I can't do her accent justice, so I won't even try. So I'll just use the words. But somebody is going through some pain, and the person says to them, bless your heart, and it's like that doesn't feel good to someone because you're feeling sorry for that
Mm,
person.
yes.
You're not trying to connect with them on an emotional level when you say that, even
Yeah.
if the words sound good, um, but they don't land well, and they don't make that person feel any better. As a matter of fact, they make the person feel worse than they already did.
Right, right. It does. It does. It doesn't offer any hope into or any light into it. It just really makes
No.
me feel more hopeless because if you're sorry for me and I'm reaching out to you or you're my
Yeah.
support and that's what you are, you're showing more sympathy than empathy because with the empathy component saying, hey, you know, I can resonate with you and
Yeah.
I'm here in support of because I'm believing your situation is going to get better. When sympathy is saying, hey, it's messed up, and I really feel sorry for you, or like some of them say, it must suck to be you. That's kind of how that feels when people say things
Yeah,
to
for
discredit,
sure.
when they
Yeah.
discredit your emotions. So that's why I wanted to talk about that to begin the
Yeah.
show tonight because some people don't know the difference. And we're going to dive into it a little bit more because in the past, I've had clients say, you
Mhm.
know what, Miss Roberta, I used to get in trouble as a child
Mhm.
because I would cry, right?
Mm.
Or I would cry for certain people or certain things. And when I would
Mhm.
get home, my family would be upset with me because I have began to feel sorry for, or I could feel certain things. And so what I had to share with them is sort of some of the things we're getting ready to talk about is it's okay because that's how we were made. But we
Mhm.
have to get there because we're in such a society who tells us to compress our emotions,
Yeah.
and we're not even, we're talking about more about our feelings, but we came
Mhm.
from a place where we didn't really discuss feelings a lot.
No. Not only did we not discuss it, but they were discouraged. Like in my upbringing, I wasn't allowed to show my feelings other than happiness and joy, um, and maybe sadness a little bit, but not, wasn't really, it wasn't frowned upon, but it wasn't also, um, embraced, I guess is the best word to describe it. But I couldn't, if I had any other emotions, we would not be allowed to talk about it, to show it, to do anything
Yeah.
with it, frankly. Um, and actually, you know what? Brene Brown talks about this in her book. I love Brene Brown. I refer to her a lot, as you can see. But she has a book on emotions, and she said that they did research on the use of the vocabulary that people had for emotions. And basically, the majority of the people had only 3 words to describe their emotions. It was, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry.
That's it. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was talking about how there are all these other emotions that people don't even know the vocabulary for. And then even if they know the vocabulary, then they don't really understand the meaning of it.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
for example, the difference between being sorry or feeling sorry for someone versus feeling empathetic towards
Yeah.
someone. A lot of people don't know the difference.
Correct, correct. Now we do have a question. I want to answer that. That's from my god sister. She said, "Can someone empathize with you if they have not experienced what you're going through?" Yes, they can, because what happens with empathy, again, is that that individual actually they're not going through your situation, but they can feel it. So
Yeah.
basically, what they're saying is, and it's a lot in words. Again, like Paris too said, a lot of people don't know how to respond because they haven't dealt with their own emotions or their feelings, so they don't know how to say it to even be empathetic, or they don't even know which one is which. But with
Yeah.
the empathy part, it's, hey, I cannot imagine what's going on. I couldn't imagine. So that's not counseling out your feelings. That's telling you that I cannot imagine within me how you're feeling. I have not been through your situation, but I'm here. So being able to communicate that with a person out of empathy is mainly is what you're hearing a person say when they say that. But if they say bless your heart, of course, that's counseling. That's a counsel out type deal. That's
Yeah,
saying,
exactly.
we don't
Exactly.
really, I heard it, but I don't want to discuss it. But if they say, hey, I couldn't imagine, you know, and basically I've been thinking or sending well wishes for you, or I'm hoping that I'm surrounding. I'm seeing surround this of positivity towards your family. I'm praying for your family. Those things are showing empathy, because usually a genuine empathetic person, you can tell the difference.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because it not funny but interesting, because I think 10 years ago or even longer, maybe 15 years ago, people have had a misunderstanding of empathy, and they thought, as this question asked, they thought that you had to have had that experience to be able to use the word empathy, and that's not at all the case. For example, I can tell you, when I was a child, I was a witness to a woman whose clothing got stuck on the bus, and then the bus took off. She was trying to get off the bus, and the bus took off, and she was being dragged by the bus and being, hurt along the way. And I saw it, and I got on my bike and I went to the lady, and before I could even get there, I could feel her pain. I felt it all over my body as if I actually had that pain.
Yes.
So it wasn't that I had ever experienced being dragged by a bus before, but it's just because I have a very strong sense of empathy. I could feel her pain just
Yeah.
through watching the situation happen right in front of me. So, and it's not, and I mean, that's kind of an extreme example. It could be something even small. It
Yeah.
could be like I coach parents, and sometimes my clients will come to me and say, my child has such a strong sense of empathy that he went and he hugged his teacher, and later on the teacher would tell me that, oh, how
Yeah.
did your son know that I was sad and I really needed a hug?
Uh-huh.
And he gave me a hug, and I didn't even say anything.
Yeah.
And just that's how intuitive and how much we can actually feel what's going on with somebody
Yeah.
else when we have such a level of empathy.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree that and like I said, sometimes it can be overwhelming, but empathy is really the best out of the two to share, because again, it's just saying that, hey, I can't relate, but I can feel the emotions that you possibly could
Yeah.
have in the situation. And
Mhm.
then so that's giving you more support, and it's more upholding than saying, hey, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
And like Paris too said, no one wants to hear, hey, I feel sorry for you, right?
Yeah.
It's an acknowledgement where you are emotionally, is what I hear you saying. Yes, they're connecting with where you are. Thanks, like, you're welcome. All right. Okay. Now, So basically the answer to that question was empathy. If you want to show something, it's empathy. I was reading a couple of articles earlier about it, um,
Mhm.
and it was saying that it's a good tool to also teach your children, because again, as Paris too said, we're coming from family structures who didn't communicate emotions,
Mhm.
and we weren't allowed to show emotions. And this is out of being empaths, right? So that's really tough. That's a really tough one, because you're feeling like, hey, something's wrong with me, because I really feel sad for this lady who got dragged by the bus, and everybody in my family is saying, let's keep going, let's keep moving. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I gotta process this. This is really hurting my feelings. So
Yeah.
now let's go to the topic more. So with what is an empath?
I think an empath, in my mind, is someone who feels very deeply. Like, for example, they could go to a museum and they could see the piece of art in front of them, and that piece of art invokes this very strong feeling within them. It's normally a very positive feeling, of course, when it comes to beauty and the arts and that sort of thing I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Normally, in those situations, is very, very positive. Um, but yeah, it's basically being able to feel very strongly, being able to um, also relate very well with others, because and have compassion, because empathy basically brings compassion. When you feel deeply, when you feel how others are feeling,
Mhm.
then you tend to also be very compassionate person.
Yes. Yes. All right. So then, um, can you identify um, if that is you, or it? Let's see. Okay. And how can you identify it in a child?
In a child is actually quite easy to identify, because they haven't learned, depending on their age. Let me make sure I say that. So depending on their age, it's quite easy to identify, because they haven't learned to kind of hide that aspect of themselves. As adults, especially if you're highly sensitive, then what happens is that, because the society doesn't see high sensitivity in a good light, in a positive light, what we do is, as we grow older, we hide that aspect of ourselves, until, of course, you discover that it's a beautiful aspect and you should embrace it, like I learned. But it took me many, many years to get to that level where I was able to embrace my sensitivity and see it as a beautiful thing and something to be proud of, and
Yeah.
see it as a superpower instead of something that's negative or a weakness. So in a child, what happens is that you could watch out to see, for example, what does their energy change, because usually in a child, what happens is, when they feel these huge emotions, their energy gets depleted. And so they might show that as being very tired, they might get cranky, they might throw a tantrum, they might cry. But that's when their empathy is like not expressed to you, like they haven't figured out the words or the vocabulary to express themselves. So because they can't express it, because they're so young, um, then they become very irritated by it, because not only are they feeling these big emotions, but on top of it, they don't know how to express it to you so that you can understand what's going on with them.
Oh,
But as they grow older, they're able to communicate like, oh, mommy, like one example is one of my clients came home to her mom and said, oh, I heard at school that this child doesn't have the money to eat lunch and that she was hungry. So I shared my lunch with her. That's that is basically a very good example of someone who has empathy for someone, right? Because they feel sad about somebody else's, um, you know, lack.
mishaps. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they want to do something about it. They don't want to just leave it, right? They don't look the other way. Empaths cannot look the other way as a child. They haven't learned that capacity yet. We do that. We do learn it as an adult. Some of us, not. I haven't. I didn't go there, but some people do learn to disassociate from it and not get involved. But some people like myself, I get involved. I can't see someone who is in pain. When I feel their pain, I must do something about it, whatever it is, whatever I have the capacity to do to help them.
Yeah.
I have to help them. I can't look the other way.
Okay. And you said like a child that's sharing, a child that's compassionate about it, if they see someone going through mishaps, and that took action.
Yeah.
So they didn't just see it and talk about it later. They also took action to
They took
do what
action.
they, yeah.
Yeah, so they shared their food, for example, and then they came home and told their parents, like, this is what happened at school today. So I shared my lunch. And like, then they go further because they want to help, right? So they want to
Yeah.
solve that problem, that child's problem, because they feel, oh, it must be so hard not to be able to eat. It must be, like, oh my God, you go hungry. That must be so painful. And that really impacts them. They have very strong emotion towards that. So that strong emotion invokes a yearning to help. So they go home and they say, hey mom, is there any way that we can help this child? Can we, do we have the means to buy them lunch, for example? Or can I take 2 sandwiches to school instead of just one sandwich for myself? Can I make two, or can you, like, depending on their age, can you make 2 lunches so that I can share that with this other person? So they not only do they feel the feelings, but they want to do something to help, to alleviate that pain or that suffering.
Okay. Now, and so now in an adult, what are some of the signs?
As an adult, so it's different. You could have a spectrum for empathy, because, for example, you could feel very strongly, like I do. I have, like, my empathy is on a different level altogether. Like, I feel the person's pain. If they have a headache, I get a headache. If they have pain in their, if they're suffering from a breakup, like one time I remember I went with a girlfriend and she learned that her significant other was with somebody else, and I could see her pain in her body. I could visibly see it, and the minute I saw her pain without her saying a word to me, I started feeling it in my heart. I could feel the pain so strongly in my heart that, and we were at a restaurant and I thought for sure, okay, I'm gonna start crying here. And I had to, like, keep talking to myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, because we're adults, and you can't be in a restaurant and crying. People will look at you and go, what is going on over there? We're trying to have fun over here.
Right.
But yeah, so as an adult, for me, for example, I actually feel everything in my body. I get sad. I get the emotions that the other person is having. But it could be that, for example, in children, for example, if they're feeling it, I'm sorry, I know we're talking about adults, but I just thought about something that's important in a child. With a child, if the emotions are too strong for them to handle, they will kind of shut that part of themselves off because the emotions are too intense for their little bodies to handle. So what
Uh-huh.
they do is they might not show empathy towards human beings, but they'll show empathy towards animals, and they can't help that. They cannot stop themselves from feeling strongly towards an animal, for example, but they can stop themselves from feeling strongly about a human being because that intensity is too much for them. So I've seen that, but going back to an adult, it varies. Like some people could, for example, not necessarily feel like they won't get the headache, they won't feel that headache or that pain that the other person
Mhm.
has, but they can feel very strong emotions about it.
Mhm. Okay. All right. And I'm asking that because again, a lot of our audience are laymen, and this is all new to them. So that's why I'm like breaking. I want to just broken down for them to get the bite sizes of it. And
Yeah,
a lot of them may be empaths, and
yeah,
they don't know it. That's kind of
yeah,
some of their situation. You know that, like I said, I've had several clients over the years who always felt everything, and
mhm,
their family usually shuts them out
yeah,
because they're always so low in emotional deficit. You know, they're always tired. They were always worn out as children, or like she said, fussy as a child because they could feel so much.
yeah.
And you
And
know,
it
and now,
makes you tired.
yeah, and now
Depletes.
that they're yeah, and now that they're older, they're like, was my family against me, or am I, why am I so different? But the
Yeah,
truth is that they're empaths, so that means that that's just how they were born. And
yeah,
there's several people out here, you know, like I said, including myself, that was born like that. So and we have to learn tools to deal with it and to be
mhm.
around people and get to know ourselves.
Yeah, and
So
you know
that,
what, with an empath, if you feel that you're an empath, I highly encourage you to see whether you're also a highly sensitive person. Or if you have a child who is an empath, I highly recommend that you see if your child is also a highly sensitive child. Because a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, a child who is an empath is also highly sensitive because that's one of the four components of being a highly sensitive person.
okay. So would you go ahead and give us all four of them?
Oh, of course. So
Oh,
in order, yeah, so 20% of the global population are highly sensitive. It's a personality trait. It is not a medical condition. And it's a personality trait that you're born with. So it's genetic. So the same way that you can't change the color of your eyes, if you have blue eyes, you can't make them into brown eyes naturally. I mean, you can with lenses, but you can't naturally. Same thing. You can't get rid of your high sensitivity because it is you're born with it. You can hide it, but you will not be able to get rid of it. And so the four components are depth of processing. And that's when you process everything to the nth degree, like analyze everything from every aspect, from, you know, you take into consideration every component, like who is going to be impacted by it, where are we, what are the feelings around it, what is the current situation, what can happen in the future with this. So you process things very, very deeply. In a child, that might look like you go to a park, it's new to the child, and instead of the child running to go and play on the slide or the swings, they stand there in front of the park and they observe. They look around them, who's here? Um, do I want to engage with that person or those people? What's at this park? Is it safe? Is it something that I could do? Because certain playgrounds have, they're specific for a specific age. And so the child is taking all that in, they're considering all of that. So they're processing everything. So sometimes parents think, oh, my child is shy, or oh, my child takes a long time to warm up. No, it's not that. If your child is highly sensitive, they're processing, because depending on their age, they might take 30 seconds to process, or they might take longer to process. And it also depends on the situation and what they're processing too. So that's the first one. The second one is being overstimulated. And the reason that you get overstimulated as a highly sensitive child is because you're taking in a lot, you're processing a lot at a much deeper level than a non-highly sensitive child. And on top of it, you're feeling a lot. So you are feeling a lot in yourself, and you're taking in a lot from your environment. So it's easy for you to get overstimulated. The third is empathy and emotional awareness. This is what I talked about. As far as empathy, of course, we talked about, but emotional awareness is when you see subtle changes in the environment, or if you see a subtle change in a person, you'll be able to pick that up. And then, so what did we cover? We covered, and
We're
then
on number 4 now.
number 4 is being sensitive to various stimuli. And that could be just one sense being sensitive, or all 5 of your senses. So for me, all 5 of my senses are sensitive. So loud sounds, bright lights, odors, like I could smell something and nobody else can smell it. And then when we get closer to the source, everybody's like, oh my God, how could you smell it from so far away? And I'm like, I don't know. I wish sometimes the smell is not that good. I wish I didn't smell it from so far away. So it could be taste. It could be scratchy clothing, like wool, for example. A lot of highly sensitive children can't handle scratchy clothing, or like a tag in their clothing, or like a seam in their pants, for example, might bother them. Or wet clothes, for example. If they go to the beach, they must change their clothes right away if they get wet, or they get sand. So it could be one sense or all of your senses, but you have to have one of your senses at least. And you have to have all 4 components to be considered highly sensitive.
Okay. Okay. Um, that's interesting. Because I wouldn't think I didn't know about the sensitivity part.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah,
As
it's
far
actually very interesting, because a lot of people, Roberta, that they don't know about high sensitivity. Unfortunately, even though high sensitivity, was discovered a long time ago, and again rediscovered, or they did a lot more studies on it in 1991. Dr. Elaine Aron is the person who termed the high sensitivity, like highly sensitive person, was termed by her in 1991. But even though it's been a long time, unfortunately, many people don't know about it. And that's why I've made it my mission to bring awareness of high sensitivity and acceptance. Of course, they have to go hand in hand.
yeah, yeah. And again, because we're coming from environments and communities that have told us, not to cry. We can only be happy or sad. Sometimes when we're really mad, I used to hear it say, get happy in the same underwear you got mad in, right? So so that means get happy quickly here. That's over with. So
Yeah.
and so we're so used to counseling out different emotions or different feelings that a lot of us just really we're really learning something. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I just, like to say it's okay to be learning it, right? Because this
Mhm.
is where we're learning about ourselves as well. It
Yeah.
says, I used to hear scratch your ass and get glad. That's it. That's what we was told. So you're right. That's what we were told. But the truth is that we're actually feeling emotions, and some people had got used to counseling, having their emotions canceled out, that they
Mhm.
don't even really pay attention to their own emotions anymore. It's kind of sad because you
Yeah.
can't even ask a person like, "How you feeling?" or
Mhm.
"How do you feel?" And they can't give you a real answer because they really don't know. People really
Yeah.
at a situation of not knowing. So, but I have heard all of those things, right? Um,
I
so
can I add to that, Roberta?
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I was just going to say that it's so important for you, if you have children, to teach them about emotions. There's 22 emotions that your children should really know about, and they should know about the difference of, not just the meaning of it, but the difference in the energy that each emotion has, because each energy has a vibrational energy. And if they're and the lower, I have a ladder of that I always provide to my clients, where it has the top 5 emotions, and then it goes down to the all the way down to 22 emotions. And the top of the ladder, the top 5 of the ladder, are where you want your children to be striving for, right? Because they have the highest level of vibrational energy. And that's important because it helps them stay regulated if they're able to stay in those top 5 emotions. Not saying that they shouldn't have any other emotions, they should, but they should try to, the minute they realize that they're in the lower vibrational energies or emotions, they should be able to climb the ladder one step at a time. By the way, you can, if you are on the very bottom of the ladder, you can't jump to the top. You have to take one emotion at a time to bring yourself up. And it's important for the children to learn that at a young age, because then when they're older and they're in the workforce, then they can manage things a lot better. They can manage relationships better, because not only do they understand themselves, but they understand other people. They will have more compassion for other people and be less judgmental, for example. And that actually is a win-win situation, because the more compassion you have for somebody else, the more you try to understand somebody else, actually you yourself are uplifted by that. So it's a win-win situation, because not only are you trying to help the other person and uplift the other person and have compassion for them, but then it helps you out as well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, being able to illustrate your emotions, what your feelings. That's why like I said, the show is called "I Feel Too Much." Uh, I've heard people say, especially in anger management, they'll say the only place I've ever had to talk about my feelings were when I came in here, right? So
Mhm.
it does help because it helps navigate with relationships. If you can, and actually, there's a safe way to even fight as well with just
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I feel this way,"
Mhm.
and that's not taking it and pitting yourself against that opposite person. It's just telling that individual how you feel. And
Yeah.
that, this is using "I feel" statement, and it makes it a lot easier to come to an agreement after that, because that other person has to accept it, because that's your feeling. That's not their feeling. It's not anybody else. It's just you saying what you feel.
Yeah.
So feelings are very important. And I 100% agree with you with
And
that.
then the aspect of it is, if you don't know what you're feeling, how are you able to process it? The
Right,
first step is identifying what you're feeling. You cannot process something that you're not aware of.
right, right. That's right. That's true. Now, someone asked earlier, does any of these symptoms go away? Which you answered, you said no, because this is a genetic disposition. So this is something in your DNA, something you inherited from your DNA, that you were empathetic, or that you care about you care about people. So this is something that you've gotten in your DNA. This is part of you. This is who you
Mhm.
are. And that's why I was saying what I found is that a lot of people don't even realize this is who I am,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of regret or shame because maybe their family didn't accept that this is who
Mhm.
they are. They may have been shunned or laughed at all their life because of them crying for, maybe a dog got hit on their way home, or because a friend got sick and passed away, and they felt like, oh, we should be able to just keep going. And
Mhm.
but that person's an empath, so they had to go through the emotions and shut down and then process it to go forward. So
Absolutely.
I've came across a lot of adults like that, so I'm pretty sure y'all out there. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what
So,
we're trying. Now, the one
although
thing, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Roberta, even if you can't change it, um, you can learn to help yourself. For example, with the overstimulation and for high sensitivity, you don't have to be overstimulated if you have the right tools. Because I teach my clients how to regulate their nervous systems. That means regulating your emotions such that you don't have those intense, volcanic reactions. When you don't know how to process your emotions and they get stuck in your body, what happens is that they get stuck and another emotion gets added, that gets stuck, and that another one gets added, and eventually you're going to erupt like a volcano, and it shows up
Right,
as someone angry, right?
right,
It's not that
yes,
you don't know how to manage your anger. It's more about you don't know how to manage your emotions, and you
that's
don't know what emotions you're feeling, and you don't know how to process them. And if you can't process your emotions, they get stuck in your body. And then I teach this practice called somatic practice. There are somatic techniques, and there are hundreds of them. So you can just try one. If it doesn't work, you can try another. But that somatic practice is a great way to deal with your overstimulation. And it also is a great way even if you're not highly sensitive person, even if you're not an empath, somatic practices can help you regulate your nervous system and help you not get angry. And even if you get angry, you know how to bring yourself down from that anger, and kind of soothe yourself. So there are tools that you could learn about to handle your deep emotions, to handle your empathy, and to also handle your overstimulation if you happen to be a highly sensitive person.
okay. All right. Well, I agree. I actually use mindfulness myself, so I agree that there are tools that you can use to and like I said, most crowds I just don't go into because I know that there's too much energy for me.
Mhm.
Um, so and then I've always been known or thought of to be shy, but the truth is, it's just too much in the environment for me. So I always go on the outside of things. If I have to go to populated
Yeah.
areas,
And
or yeah. So that's kind of
one
how
technique that I
uh-huh.
one technique that I use that you might consider using is I when I wake up in the morning and I do my morning ritual and everything before I leave the house, where I know I'm going to be in a crowded environment, or I'm going to be maybe taking, because I feel other people's energies very strongly. I protect myself by imagining before I leave the house. I close my eyes and I imagine that I have a bubble that's all around my body. There's this bubble, and I imagine I'm in that bubble. And when I leave my home, this bubble will protect me. And this bubble will not allow other people's energy penetrate my body. So I leave the house knowing that I'm protected by this bubble. And it's something that you have to work on. It's kind of like, when you meditate in the beginning, it's so hard because all these thoughts come to your head and you're not supposed to be doing that and you're fighting against it. And it's, or the length of time feels like it's going on forever and it's only been 10 seconds. So it takes time to develop
Yeah.
this ability to create that bubble around you. But once you know how to utilize it, oh my God, it protects you like nothing else.
Okay. Well, that's pretty neat. I like that. And I've
Yeah.
used that with the children, but I've never used it with adults. So that's neat that even I've heard adults who perform say pretend like everybody's naked, or
Mm.
I've heard them say turn your back to the audience while you perform if you have, any fear of the audience. But
Yeah.
but that's neat to use that as an adult as well. Now,
Mhm.
that just leads right into the last question of this evening is just what about protecting your energy? And here on like social media and just in songs, I mean, in the last, I say probably the last, what, 10 years, all you hear is people say about their energy. Let's talk about that. Well, what about protecting your energy? What is that? What are they talking about? And you just kind of hit on it a little bit with that list,
Yeah.
but
That means that, when somebody is like, let's say you go to the supermarket and the person behind you is super annoyed that the line is moving so slowly and they just keep like twitching and fidgeting and moving around and just being super annoyed, and they might even voice their, not just make movements and make little sounds here and there, but they might actually use words like, oh my God, this is so slow, why can't they work faster, what's taking them so long. They have this tone of voice and they have this body language and they're doing all these different things to show that they're annoyed. Well, that's energy, right? And if
mhm.
you're an empath, guess what? And you don't know how to protect your energy, that energy will enter your body. And you then all of a sudden become annoyed as well. And you're
Wow.
like, I wasn't annoyed 2 minutes ago. I just got annoyed because this person behind me has such a
Wow.
strong negative energy that they
Right.
entered into my field of energy. And so that's why it's so important for me and anybody else who has these strong feelings and they are empaths. I highly encourage you to learn how to create that bubble around you, or anything else. Like some people wear bracelets. There's certain bracelets. They're the beaded bracelets that you find at like a Tibetan shop, or a lot of people carry it now because they're very
Yeah.
popular. But each stone has a different, basically different energy, and it has a different type of effect on you. And one of the stones, it's a black stone. It's not porous, but it's a black stone. I forgot what it's called now, but it
Is it
basically,
onyx?
yes, it's an onyx. Thank you. Yeah, so it basically takes the energy from others and it bounces it back to them, so that it does not go into your energy. If you believe in that, then that works for you. I haven't seen it work for me, but I wear it nonetheless, just because I'm like, might work, why not? But the bubble that actually works for me really well. So
All
I really
right.
like these bracelets.
Well, I like to say, you know what? We're gonna be getting ready to close out. You want to go ahead and give your platforms and how they can contact you and when. And hey, Jason, uh, can do to protect your peace. Well, you know what, Jason? As she said, avoid negative people, negative situations the best you can. She gave a tough one though. That's in going to the store, but I like to say watching, your people that you're around. And I seen a post that you talked about that not too long ago, so you did good. Baby, we were out. Yes, yes. It's my anniversary, Jason. It's my 1 year, buddy. So you're gonna have to come on with us before the year's up. All right. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you go ahead and say something. I'm gonna close out.
Okay, okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about high sensitivity, whether you have a child or you are highly sensitive yourself, you can check out my website at parentinghsc.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Paris to Imami. And I'm also on all the other platforms, but IG is, I guess, a lot of people use it. And that's my handle is Paris2 underscore parenting advice.
All right.
Thank you so much, Miss Roberta. This was so amazing. Thank you for inviting me today. It's been a pleasure to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you. Um, and I just want to say thank you and thank the Power Team for having me this year. It's been a year. And I want to do a special shout out to Kia, the cleaning lady, or what is it? The cleaning. Let me see what it's called. Kia the cleaner. I want to thank her as well because she's been so supportive to me on this platform. Miss Keisha, Miss Robin, of course, my other beautiful co-host Jackie. So we've just been having fun. And Miss Paris too, you're going to be always welcome as well.
Thank you so much.
All right. And cleaning life with Kia. That's what it is. So thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Love you. And see you in 2 more weeks. Peace.
Bye-bye.
There's a sparkle